I had acne for over a decade. In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from persistent cystic adult acne to healthy, clear, and glowing skin and faded acne pigmentation in just 8 months. If you're new here, I'm Melissa, naturopathic nutritionist and naturopath, helping women address the root causes of their acne and clear their skin. So if you're someone who is struggling with persistent adult acne, and you're wanting a natural way to clear your skin, then keep watching because in this video, I'm walking you through my full acne journey from teenage to adult acne and the steps that I took to clear my acne in 8 months. Let's get into it. Before we dive into this video, I want to show you that I have created a free guide for you called my Root Cause Realization Blueprint to help you identify the different root causes of your acne and what could be driving your symptoms by assessing the symptoms that you currently have that you might not have even realized were connected to your acne. So to access this guide, all you have to do is click the first link in the bio, add your email address and your name, and you will get direct access to create a copy of this form. And all you need to do is go through and answer those questions so that you can understand what is the main root cause of your acne and also what are the other symptoms that could be connected with your breakouts. I've laid out this video in 4 different parts. We're going to start by talking through my teenage acne journey, and then I'm going to walk you through how my skin progressed into my adult years, particularly in my early 20s, why that happened. And then I'm going to go through what I did to actually address those root causes and how I actually cleared my skin. And after that, I'm going to give you key ways that I maintain clear skin. And when I say clear skin, that doesn't mean that I never get a spot. I still get the odd spot now and again. Starting from the top, my teenage acne journey. For me, my breakouts really started from the age of 10 when I was in primary school. This was very much a early puberty symptom for me. I started my period when I was 11. And before that, I was already getting the typical signs of my boobs growing in and the breakouts, the oily skin. And my teenage acne journey really progressed from the ages of 10 all the way through to 15. And during that time, I had no idea that my lifestyle was actually impacting my skin. In the beginning, I was using topical treatments. I was using topical antibiotics. I even used epidural for a period of time. But I moved on to medication pretty quickly. I tried various types of antibiotics during those 5 years. I was also put onto hormonal birth control about 3 different times, but I just didn't want to be honest. I was never on hormonal birth control for extended periods of time. I think the most I was ever on one would have been about 3 weeks. I wouldn't say that hormonal contraception was a big part of my skin healing journey, but obviously I was put on it at some point. For me, it was heavy antibiotic use. And during those 5 years, at some points, my skin was clear and then I would break out again and then my skin would be clear. I was someone who did start to eat quite healthy, especially because there was a period of time when I was around 15 to 16 where you were getting into drinking alcohol and maybe eating more unhealthy foods. So there was a period of time where I gained weight and my acne was really cystic. And I don't have pictures of myself without makeup on because it was something I felt really insecure about. The only reason that I actually decided to start eating healthy was because I was someone who was very aware of my weight. I started to overhaul my life and eat a lot more healthy, which coincides with the fact that at that same period of time, I did go on Accutane for the first time when I was 15. My skin was clear from the ages of 16 all the way until I was in university. I went to university at 19 and my skin was clear for pretty much that first year, which is when we move into the next phase of this video on my acne journey. And that is when my acne started to come back in my early 20s. Like I said, my skin was clear from the ages of 16 all the way until I was around 20 to 21 because I had been on the Accutane. I didn't have any blackheads. My skin was literally perfect. The way that they explain Accutane works, occasionally I would get the odd spot. My skin was clear. By university, my skin did start to break out again, and this was quite gradual. When I look back at the reason why I do put this down to various different factors, knowing what the root causes of my acne actually were when I did actually address those imbalances. And obviously as a practitioner myself, it is something that I often think about because when I think about why did my acne come back and then how can I keep it clear moving forward, is really about looking back at your medical history and what was happening in your life at the time to understand why it started to come back in the first place. I had chronic stress from being a child, being a teenager, into my early 20s. But as I started to come back, this is where the stress factors and parts of my life really started to continue to get worse. I know for me that having this long-term chronic stress and really feeling like I was in survival mode from the ages of around 21 all the way through to the ages of, let's say, 23. That was definitely a factor. But one of the main things I feel like was a big trigger for me was the fact that at the age of 19, I did decide to go vegan. And when I say I went vegan, it wasn't the way that I would work with vegan clients now. And my partner is actually vegan and we optimize the way that he eats. I didn't have the education on how to eat a healthy vegan diet. And when I say that, I don't mean that I was sitting around eating a ton of vegan junk food like vegan chicken nuggets and vegan ice cream and vegan pizzas and just saying that I was healthy. I was eating whole plant foods, but the entire movement of veganism at that time, so in terms of the years, would have been around 2016 was when I first went vegan, for around 5 years after that. So around 2020, 2021, when I stopped being vegan. So at that time, the movement all over YouTube was all about this high carb, low fat diet, literally no salt. So obviously we're thinking about pairing the fact that I was chronically stressed. I was obviously a university student. I was in a long distance relationship at the time, and my skin then starts to break out because I've then been vegan and I'm getting incredibly inflamed. My diet was very low in protein. It was very high in carbohydrates, very low in fats, very low in omega-3s, very low in vitamin A, like all of these different things that the skin actually needs. The inflammation that I had was significant and my skin was getting gradually and gradually worse. So at the age of 20, my skin became oilier. I had fewer breakouts, but I was breaking out on my forehead, around my chin. Then at 21, my skin started to get more consistent with the breakouts. I knew I had acne and I started to think, should I go back to the dermatologist? I believed that Accutane was the only thing that could help me because I'd done that before and it had worked. And I felt like I was doing everything. So I was taking clear skin supplements, omega-3 supplements. I think I was taking turmeric. I was drinking turmeric ginger shots, drinking fresh juices. I was taking Beauty Chef probiotic powder, which worked for a bit and then it didn't. This is the cycle that I was really in, desperate for a natural option, but just couldn't find it. I graduated university at age 22 and I felt really self-conscious because I did have acne whilst I was at university. After I finished university at 22, I moved to London to work in fashion. This was my childhood dream. I always wanted to move to London and work in fashion, and I was literally doing it. I was living in the area that I manifested accidentally as a teenager, but I was so unhappy. I handed in the notice of my job. I cancelled my contract, the room that I was renting at the time. And the day that I was leaving London, that my dad was going to pick me up for me to move back home, I actually went to the open day of the college that I ended up studying at to become a naturopath, which is a college of naturopathic medicine. And I hadn't heard anything about the college before then. When I was sitting there, I knew that this is what I needed to do. Long story short, I moved back home with my dad. I got another job. I enrolled at CNM to start to become a naturopath. I started to go to therapy, counseling. This is something that is really important that I need to speak about because acne is so emotionally driven. Never be afraid to reach out and get that support that you actually need, but it is actually really important on an acne healing journey. I made the decision to go back to the dermatologist and go on the medication that they suggested. I went on antibiotics, then they just put me back on Accutane. At the same time, I'd obviously started studying to become a naturopath. This was a year where we were basically learning more of the science. So I wasn't necessarily learning much about the nutrition and the root cause approach. At this point, it was very much learning about the human body and the different diseases that can relate with the human body. This is now early 2020. We went into lockdown. It really gave me the opportunity to tap in with myself, reconnect with myself and explore my personal interests. I started to do more exercise again. I was getting out in nature and doing more walks. And it was at this time that I really started to actually work one-to-one with a naturopath myself and really address those deeper root causes. This was after I'd come off the Accutane. This is what I was really for. My acne came back pretty immediately, but it didn't present the same. Previously, what had happened was my acne was on my forehead and then it moved onto my chin, my jawline, my cheeks, and down my neck. And it was quite cystic. And then before I went on the Accutane, it was all over my face. Then after I came off the Accutane, it was more so itchy bumps with a few red inflamed breakouts because I was reacting to so many foods. But I had itchy inflamed bumps all over my cheek. There were so many foods that I was intolerant to. So I was putting out so many foods at this point. I was very frustrated that this was probably the point where it hit me the most. I hadn't really understood the root cause. I had the Will Cole Inflammation Spectrum book because this was the time when I started to stop being vegan. And if you've ever read that book, it's a very good book, but the elimination diet that they walk you through is very restrictive. Obviously, if you're vegan as well, because there's a point where you are removing all chickpeas, legumes, anything, even nightshade vegetables. And as a vegan, I was very restricted with the foods that I was eating, but it did work. And I feel like it did actually help me reduce inflammation. But then I just worked with a naturopath of my own to really get to the actual root causes and do functional testing and really dive into what was actually happening in my body. At that time, there was no way that I would have been able to do for myself what that practitioner did for me. I didn't know what I know now. What I'm going to do now is we're going to move into the next step where I'm going to walk you through what I did with that practitioner to address the root causes of my acne. And I'm going to explain it in the order that I feel like is more relevant to how I work with my clients now, as opposed to the order that I did things with that practitioner, because it's slightly different. Let's go into that now. The first step for me was really with my nutrition. I was never told by the naturopath to no longer be vegan. It was more a case of if that is the decision I wanted to be from an ethical standpoint, then they would have just helped me optimize that. But for me, I had this gut feeling that being vegan just wasn't working. The first step really for me was to gradually reintroduce different animal proteins. So what I'd already been doing was increasing my stomach acid and enzymes so that my body could actually break down the animal protein again. And I actually learned that from the World Club book. So I'm really glad that I did that. And obviously the naturopath would have helped me with that, but it was something that I had already been doing, introducing foods back in gradually, like I said, eggs and then the seafood. And at this time when I was working with the naturopath, we really focused on was balancing my blood sugar, because we know that the connection between insulin and acne is significant. My blood sugar was incredibly imbalanced. Another thing that really worked quite well for me at that time, from the traditional Chinese medicine standpoint of when we do have acne, this can be a sign that there is damp heat in the body. So for me, removing excess damp and excess heat felt like it helped significantly, because I was someone who would get very hot. I was always sweating. I would get very red and flustered. I was easily stressed. And obviously I had acne, and I would get hormonal symptoms, which would make me very frustrated and easily angered and very irritated. I had a lot of signs of excess heat. So I'm reducing the heat in my body by reducing the spicy foods and foods with a generally hot constitution helped me a lot. And then what I also did was increase cooling foods and a few more dry foods to really help me bring down that excess heat in the body. And that did actually help me significantly. But when I worked with the naturopath, a few of the other things that actually helped with this heat indirectly was nervous system support. We used emotional freedom technique tapping, which was the first time I'd ever heard of this. It's referred to as a neurosomatic movement, because you are using different terminology and phrases, tapping into your emotions and tapping on the meridian points of the body to help move the emotions through. We also use memory matrix re-imprinting. Using both of these techniques, even though I was doing talk therapy, it was these two things that really helped me learn a lot more about regulating my nervous system and actually identifying and addressing more limiting beliefs. I did a lot of work outside of this on my own. There were sessions with a practitioner where we would do one-on-one sessions. But what I will say from a client's perspective and also a practitioner's perspective, yes, doing those things with your practitioner is going to be really powerful, but what you're doing over the months in between those calls is going to be the thing that actually makes all the difference. So are you then continuing to do the emotional freedom technique tapping every day to regulate your nervous system? Are you spending time away from your phone? Are you getting outside into nature without your screens and maybe even without headphones sometimes? Are you humming? Are you laughing? Are you deep belly breathing? Something that helped a lot was actually singing. And I can't sing. I just want to emphasize the importance of nervous system regulation for anyone who is experiencing acne. I did do a Dutch test early on in the journey. We did this test because I wanted to learn more about my hormones. I was having very significant period symptoms, like very bad period pains, and I just generally felt very inflamed. Typically, what I do with my clients now is I won't do a Dutch test early on. I will do a blood test, which does consist of a couple of hormone markers, but generally this is a full functional blood test with a mineral analysis test. And then for those who have gut symptoms, we will also do a stool test. And it will only be a few months down the line where we will look at doing a Dutch test. And if you're wanting some other markers and measures of health that I use with my clients, I also like to check HRV, which is your heart rate variability. So if you have an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch, it will tell you that. I also use basal body temperature. Then we also have using a continuous glucose monitor to really track your blood sugar throughout the day, because blood sugar imbalances and insulin sensitivity is very connected with acne. For me, I did a Dutch test early on, and what this essentially showed was pretty chronic stress. Even though my cortisol was within range, it wasn't necessarily showing acute stress or like stress at the time that I took the test. It was more so chronic stress. So there were different markers that were really showing that my body had been in this long-term stress for long periods of time. I had slightly elevated androgens and leaning more towards 5-alpha reductase, which was potentially a driver of the acne, but I also had estrogen. High estrogen isn't necessarily indicated as a driver of acne, but it's looking at the difference between estrogen in relation to testosterone and other androgens, estrogen in relation to progesterone, and understanding that full picture. I needed to work on the way that my body was metabolizing the estrogen and work on different areas of detoxification. and increasing different nutrients to really support my liver. We did do some detoxification work, and this helped me tremendously because my body was missing so many nutrients from years of being vegan and years of being stressed. So I had to replace quite a lot of different nutrients. And at the time, I was very anxious. We also used different herbs and amino acids and minerals to support my nervous system to help with the anxiety. Magnesium was a big one of those. There's so many different B vitamins. I was very low in so many different things. And this is why it's important to look into your own body to see what your body needs. Because not only was I low in these nutrients, I just wasn't eating the foods to absorb it. And my enzymes and my stomach acid were so low that even if I was eating those foods, I probably wouldn't be able to get the benefits of it. And I was taking a lot of supplements, and I still wasn't getting the benefits from them because my body wasn't able to absorb it. So it's not just about replacing the missed nutrients. It's also about working on the underlying mechanisms as to why your body isn't actually absorbing and utilizing those nutrients in the first place. This is why it's really important to work with a practitioner who knows what they're doing. I had to do a lot of gut work. So I was having bloating. I was having really loose stools with some urgency. There was a period of time where I'd been to Africa and I got stomach issues. I didn't do a stool test at this time. What I had to do is remove more of the bad guys and really replace with the beneficial bacteria. We went through what's referred to as a 5R gut protocol, where we remove what we don't want, we repair the gut lining, we re-inoculate with beneficial bacteria, and then we make sure that the body is rebalanced with nervous system support, sleep, mindset work, positive outlook. Other things that I want to mention that I did, because obviously what we've just gone through is nutrition with blood sugar balance, nervous system work, liver detoxification, which helped with my hormones. We did a full gut protocol, which was very pivotal in my journey because not only was I bloated, I was having this silent reflux. I would occasionally get stomach pain from my lower esophageal sphincter, from the low stomach acid, but I was getting this like gurgling feeling on my throat, which was getting progressively worse. Other things that I did were increasing my minerals. I was taking magnesium. I think I was taking zinc at one point, but it was actually later on in my journey where I actually did a hair tissue mineral analysis test on myself and found out that my body was very depleted in a lot of different nutrients, and the way that I was still living my lifestyle with waking up at 5 a.m., going to the gym, the job I was doing, the studying I was doing, the business I was starting, I was very burnt out. Even though I still had energy to do all those things, my body wasn't responding in the way that essentially it wanted to. So I didn't necessarily feel stressed, but I was literally running on nothing. Consistently then having to do a lot of work with my minerals. I've been doing that for the last few years now. It's something that I now work on maintaining and be consistent with. Whilst doing all of this, I was repairing my metabolic health. When I was vegan, I wasn't doing any weighted movements. I was maybe running. So on that journey, what I really had to do was really bring back in those movements to help me build back muscle to support my metabolism. About 2 years ago, I removed all pore-clogging ingredients from my skincare. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to walk you through some of those key ways that I am maintaining my clear skin. I'm going to be giving you is actually some practical steps and tips and things that you can do with your routine to help you start to clear your skin from today. So let's go into that. The first thing is sleeping. For me, I've always been someone who's gone to bed early. I was in bed by 8 p.m. when I had the time as a teenager, and now I go to bed before 9 p.m., always getting in at least 8 hours of sleep. So you want to be going to bed before 10 p.m. so that you can be asleep before 11. I don't set an alarm at 5 a.m. anymore. I am someone who prefers to just allow my body to get the extra rest. So waking up around 6 a.m. is a good time for me, but sometimes I will allow my body to sleep in until 7. If I know that my body needs that sleep and that rest, quality sleep is a very big metric for my health and my longevity. Previously, I would have felt guilty about allowing myself to sleep in because it might sound like lazy, let's say, but I can physically tell when my body needs sleep. And if I don't get that sleep, I don't recover, repair, and I don't feel as good. Sleep is essential. The next thing is consistently supported by nervous system and really my adrenal. I spend my Sundays off social media and I really focus on what I refer to as a Parasympathetic Sunday. This isn't an original idea. In fact, I'll put it on the screen. The podcast that I originally got this idea from, because honestly, it has been life-changing, where essentially I take the full day of social media and only focus on doing things that support my parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system, such as getting outside into nature, such as spending a few hours in the afternoon doing meditation, hypnosis traps, EFT, affirmations, doing a castor oil pack, doing my LED red light mask, putting my legs up against the wall, reading, journaling, just really focusing in on those nervous system activities, lighting a lavender natural scented candle, and avoiding TV and screens that is very stimulating, mainly focusing on Disney movies or rom-coms or lighter comedies and things that aren't necessarily going to be intense, scary, or dramatic. The next thing is hormones. So key ways I support my hormones at the moment is it's summertime, so making sure that you get outside into the sun to get the vitamin D. I also make sure to eat breakfast within an hour of waking and have 30 grams of protein as well as 30 grams of complex carbohydrates with my breakfast. And to make sure I'm eating enough food. We then have minerals. So something I do every day is make sure that I'm adding sea salt to my meals. I'm definitely taking the minerals that I know that my body needs based on my test results. And I do have electrolytes and drink mineral mocktails during the day because I know that my body needs it, especially during periods of more stress, because the body does let go of more minerals when we do go through stressful periods. So it's really there for building the stress resilience and making sure that your body can handle the things that it needs to. And then the next one is movement. So movement is always going to be important for supporting metabolic health. But what we really need to do is make sure that the energy is there first. We don't want to be doing exercise if we haven't had enough food, if we haven't had enough sleep, and if our body is really depleted. What we want to do is make sure that we are aware that our body goes through different hormone cycle and our cortisol level is going to be different during different phases of the monthly menstrual cycle. For me, in the second 2 weeks and into my luteal phase, especially the late luteal phase, I'm very aware of my cortisol limit because during that time, our cortisol is just naturally going to be higher. So I'm very aware of when my body needs to stop trying to lift heavier, doing a longer workout, or just doing something more intense. I'm going to be doing a shorter workout. My sets are going to be shorter. My weights are going to be lighter. I'm still going to be walking my daily steps. I'm probably not going to be doing really intensive hikes. These are just ways that I use movement to really move around my monthly cycle. But something that I really think is important is knowing your cortisol limit. Because if you have a lot of stress at work, what you don't want to be doing is going really hard in the gym, especially in your late luteal phase. Obviously, these are things that I do now in my routine to really maintain clear and healthy skin. I also keep out pore-clogging ingredients in my skincare. I eating balanced meals every single day, really making sure to prioritize protein, diversity of different vegetables. I do take personalized supplementation. But if you're already doing these things, but you're not necessarily seeing the results with your skin, then that is a sign that your body is going to need deeper work before you can move into really this maintenance phase. Because everybody is going to be so different. And this is why I really using functional testing and really diving into medical history to understand what could be happening in your body. For a lot of people, it's not going to be as simple as just eating more vegetables and drinking more water, right? You're probably already doing those things. You've probably already been doing so many different things with your nutrition, but what you actually need is something deeper to actually help you understand your root cause and actually address that root cause. So if you're a woman with acne and you feel like you want to know this information because you know that investing in your health is really something that is going to be helpful for your longevity, not just now to help you clear your skin, but in the long term, then I have created a free guide for you to download, which essentially is a checklist which will walk you through all of the main symptoms to help you identify what the root cause of your acne could actually be. Not only that, but in this guide, I've also included a more specific gut health checklist so that you can identify if gut health is potentially an imbalance for you, but what actually in your gut health is going to be driving your symptoms. This checklist is from a symptoms approach, or what it's going to do is it's going to give you an idea of what symptoms you have currently that could also be connected with your skin. I had no idea that my bloating and my anxiety and my migraines were directly related with my acne and the root causes of what was breaking me out. So that is what this guide is there to do. I hope this video helped you feel less alone and understand that just what you see now online is not someone's full journey. So if you like this video, then you're going to love this video, which is going to show you the top 9 root causes of acne to help you understand a bit more information around why that root cause could be driving your symptoms. So I'll see you there.